Hello, this is Samo Guy Hawaii with a look at getting through the first 10 to 15 turns of Humankind. That's getting the most out of the Neolithic era before we choose our first culture. Now, we have three objectives during this period. One, explore and reveal as much of the map as possible. Two, acquire at least one era star, which allows us to progress to the ancient era. Three, establish one or more outposts. The first completed outpost will become our first city when we enter the ancient era. Exploration is about collecting these plant and knowledge curiosities and or killing beasts, all of which lead to earning era stars. We'll get to that in a moment. It's also about finding good spots to set up outposts, the first of which will become our first city. We'll come back to that as well. It's also about revealing as much of the map as possible, finding where rival civs may be situated, where we might want to expand, etc. Two tips for maximizing exploration and coverage and earning an era star quickly. First, in the course of exploration, we normally gain additional units, either from collecting these plant curiosities or from special events. When this happens, consider splitting them up to explore in different directions and cover more ground.
Yes.
Just keep an eye out for other Civ units or hostile beasts, which will usually engage us in combat. By the way, hostile beasts have this lightning bolt symbol and will attack. Ones with this peace symbol won't bother us unless we bother them. Now, if we want to engage in combat or kill beasts for a hunt star, more on that in a bit, we may want to double up units and give ourselves a combat strength edge. We'll talk just a bit about combat and combat strength when we cover hunting beasts and outpost location. The other trick, and I've seen tons of more experienced content creators recommend this, is to set our first tribe on auto explore, because the game AI kind of cheats and tends to go in the right direction towards curiosities we can't necessarily see at the moment start. I mean, we want to switch this function off and on if multiple curiosities are revealed in a small area, so we can prioritize which to go after. I tend to have at least one unit on Auto Explorer throughout the Neolithic era and even to the Ancient era, just moving around, reviewing new map areas, collecting curiosities. Curiosities tend to be less abundant once we get to the Ancient era, but they never completely go away, especially at sea, and they go up in value. That's exploration. Let's talk about era stars. We progress to the Ancient era, get our first culture, and evolve our first outpost into a city by earning at least one era star. Hovering over these icons tells us what we need to do to earn a particular era star, namely accumulate population, accumulate science, or kill beasts. Population grows as we discover these plant symbol curiosities, 5, 10, or more food points each. For every 20 accumulated points, we get another unit, which increases our population by 1. We get a second tribe, a second unit. Get 4 units, and we get a growth star. Only 4 because we start out with 1. As I mentioned before, feudal population can also be awarded by random events. Discovering these scientific affinity symbols earns influence and science, at least 5 influence and 1 or more science points per curiosity. Get 10 science and we earn a knowledge star. Influence is also needed to found an outpost. Defeating beasts earns us hunt points, 1 per defeated animal, 5 defeated beasts, and we earn the hunt star. So a single star and we can choose a culture and progress to the ancient era. A star also earns a small amount of fame. It starts at 100 points. The turn after we discover a curiosity or kill a beast, it drops to 80 and then continues to drop by 20 every turn until it reaches and stabilizes at 20. 100 fame is not a lot in most games, although my favorite wins so far have by less than 50 points. This is just to get the new player familiar with the concept of earning arrow stars and how fame rewards for subsequent progress slowly go down after we gain the first. Okay, and getting a star quickly after we get that first curiosity or first hunt kill is really a matter of luck, of where the game generates those things. The 3 arrow star requirements are weighted roughly equal in terms of what it takes to get them. Again, some luck is involved. In general, though, growth and knowledge tend to be faster and easier than hunts. Hunt combat, even if successful, reduces unit health that can't be recovered until at least one outpost is founded. Establishing a first outpost in the Neolithic era costs 5 influence, so we have to hit at least one science curiosity to be able to do that. Even with an outpost claimed region in which to heal, getting a hunt star often means getting multiple units to stack the deck against any hunt beast. And that means collecting food curiosities. So getting a hunt star quickly often depends on both growth and knowledge star progress, as well as beasts to hunt. Also, if we plan on killing beasts, we need a basic understanding of combat strength, and how to use terrain. In short, if the combat preview shows the beast has a higher combat strength, we may want to get more units and or change the location before attacking. Population and science, meanwhile, are just a matter of running around the map. That's era stars. Let's talk about outposts. Outposts are administrative centers for a region. Humankind divides up the landscape into regions which we can then exploit if they belong to us. So we establish outposts to claim regions. Outposts can be used to exploit resources within their region and even build certain improvements like harbors. Beyond that, however, they don't do anything unless we evolve them into a city or attach them to a city. So grabbing as much territory possible in the early going is normally a good idea. Just be aware that establishing any outpost requires influence 5 for the first, more for the second and third. This means hitting more knowledge curiosities. Now, getting a second or third, even third outpost going in good spots before we progress to the ancient era, however, can be a big plus. Now, despite those pluses, we still want to be wary of sticking an outpost just anywhere in a region because our first fully established outpost will become our first city. City location can have a big influence on our game. We can, if need be, relocate an outpost later. However, this costs influence. And for our first city, we kind of want to get it right the first time. So here are some things to keep in mind when placing outposts. When we click on a unit, then the Establish Outpost button, then move the cursor around the map, the game shows us the food and production yield for any new outpost that will sit on that spot, as well as the number of turns it will take to fully set up the outpost. It's essentially totaling up all the yields for that hex and the adjacent hexes. Occasionally, there are tiles that also contribute science and or influence, but food and production are the most important at this point. It takes 25 production to set up an outpost. If we divide 25 by the production number and round down, we get the number of turns it will take to establish an outpost on that spot. So more production, faster outpost establishment. But food is important too. We want to try and select a spot that has a good balance of both food and production. The more total resources, the faster the outpost city can grow and the faster it can produce things to include population. The rule of thumb I have seen suggested is to go for at least 10 food and 10 production. I try for at least 7 of each. Both are good metrics, but not always possible. Some regions tilt more towards food, others more towards production. Some have a little of either. It all depends on the randomness of the map generator. Sometimes the game starts us in a less than ideal region. Now, on standard or lower difficulties, it's best to look for a better area. On higher difficulties, well, you're probably an experienced player who doesn't need to watch this video. So starting food and production numbers are important, but there are a few other things to consider when looking at potential locations. Try for concentrations of specific tile types with certain features. Rivers increase both production and population in the long run. Clusters of specific tile types, forest and woodland is one, mountain and stone and rocky are the other, are ideal. There are infrastructure improvements that exploit these specific subtypes. If the location has a lot of any of these subtypes in close proximity, those improvements can significantly ramp up production, growth, etc. We also want to look at these features and tile elevation with an eye towards combat. And I could spend an entire video or 3 just on combat, probably will at some point, but I'm going to hit just the highlights, otherwise we'll be here a while. High ground is an advantage. Try to be on it when attacking and defending. It also provides line of sight over other units for some ranged attacks. Any elevation change of more than one level cannot be scaled by almost all units, forcing them to take a longer, more circuitous route. This can affect attacking armies, but can also limit our ability to get reinforcements to a spot quickly. Rivers stop most movement and convey large penalties to anyone attacking from or across them, or being attacked while on them. And forest tiles provide some damage reduction from ranged attacks. Now, these are all things we might want to consider when situating an outpost, but don't obsess too much over it when learning the game, okay? Humankind combat is mechanically simple, but in actual play, wonderfully complex. The best way to get good at it is to just play the game, okay? Try not to set an outpost right on a regional border. An outpost or city center can only work hexes that lie within their region. Unless we have a really good reason for doing so, we want to avoid setting an outpost right on the regional border, right on the border, lest that prevent us from exploiting one or more of those surrounding hexes. Lastly, be aware of the overall layout of the region with an eye towards city growth and defense and everything else. Some regions are roundish with lots of open space. Others are snaky, sometimes with multiple choke points and a lot of mountains. Many are somewhere in between. Okay? Cities normally expand outward from their center. With certain exceptions, districts can only be built adjacent to either the city center or pre-existing districts. Ideally, we want our city to have room to expand unencumbered by mountains and or coast and or regional borders. More open space means more districts. More space also means more room to place districts in different arrangements by choice to take advantage of district adjacencies. Most districts gain bonuses to what they produce when placed next to similar districts or specific districts designed to boost other ones. Okay. Here's an example of a city where I didn't do that. It's between two mountains, very close to a regional border and a coastline. Now, I may have put this here to take advantage of the mountains, although I don't recall for sure. There are bonuses to be had from mountains in some situations. As an example, the ancient era Zhou culture's emblematic district generates bonus influence based on the number of adjacent mountains. But this location so limits expansion that in this case, it's not really worth it. With enough experience, though, we'll get good at planning ahead for specific district placement to include adjacencies. We'll understand how to look at all this. Okay, actually, all of this—the stars, the exploration, the city placement—takes time to master. With experience, we do start to pick up on these concepts. Hopefully, having pointed all this out to you, you'll maybe pick up on them a little bit quicker. Okay, and that's it. If you like this content and want to see more, consider leaving a like, a comment, or subscribing. You can also check me out on twitch.tv/SummoGuy in Hawaii. I stream at least 3 times a week, including but not exclusively Humankind. And as always, stay safe, and thanks for watching.